Hello and welcome to Stylish Chats with Creatives. Today on the podcast, I've got Mark Stringer. Mark's a managing director of AHOY, which is a branding agency in the Northwest. He's a non-exec director of Creative Spark. He's a contracting marketing director at a dairy company. And he's also a photographer and also deals with camper vans and selling camper van products. We met on a TV advert where Mark was shooting some behind the scenes stuff. We got chatting and I sent Mark a little message and was just like, do you know what? I think you'd be really interesting to interview for the podcast. So that's how come you're here today.
Yeah.
And
when we met, you were peering over a green box, weren't you?
yeah.
Just a sea of green boxes. It's just like green box and just kept on seeing. I was like, who's this lady in the background just sellotaping up green boxes?
Oh, that day I was working until midnight the night before, wrapping boxes.
Yeah.
And when Kieran messaged me and said, can you do this? I thought, yeah, all right then. This is fine. Cool. And then I filled my car and I'd only wrapped like 5 boxes or something in my car. And then it was like, we need a really big box. So when I got there, I just chucked everything down and I was like wrapping frantically and I was sweating. My glasses were steaming up. I thought I was trying to introduce myself to people and they were like, are you okay, hun?
Yeah, it was a cool it was a cool day. It was an interesting one for me, that, because as I say, the non-exec work that I do for Spark, they needed a photographer for the stills for the footballer that was in the. I don't know where we are. I'm sure it'll be all out by the time the podcast. I don't know, but I don't know whether we should mention him. But it was an ex-Premiership footballer who was the talent in the video, and Neil was like, well, "We've got no photographer. Are you all right doing the stills, and then you can do some BTS as well?" So I was like, "Yeah." So I'll do it. Like, fake it so you make it. I'll do it. So, I mean, and it's great because you have someone who puts a little bit of trust in you and then you kind of get pushed into things. And I think only because I've been around shoots, whether that's, helping art direct for video shoots or photography shoots, but actually when you're technically doing it, when you're setting up your own lighting and you're technically getting all your exposure right and all the rest of it, there was a bit of pressure. And when I was driving there that morning, I had to stop the van. I thought I was going to vomit. Right, I was that nervous and that stressed. It was the BTS stuff. I'm fine. Like in on my Instagram, I just don't stop taking photographs. But with that, I was like, I'm gonna have this celebrity, and if I get it wrong and the stuff's not right, I feel like I'm gonna let everyone down. So yeah, I was really nervous that day. I don't think I've shown it, but it was a fun day, wasn't it? It was good.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't notice you were nervous, but I was also nervous. I was in the car and I couldn't see out of any of my windows apart from the window screen and the two front windows because of all the boxes. And then I thought, what the fuck have I got myself into? Am I good at, is my rapping good enough? Is what me and Kieran chatted about at 11 o'clock last night the right thing? Yeah. Is this...
I bet people are looking at you going, fucking hell, she's starting Christmas early. Look at her with all the presents wrapped. Mrs. Organised.
Yeah. It made me think, though, I actually need a van rather than the car. Because the amount of times that I'm got a 6-foot Christmas tree, bags of IKEA full of shit, and I'm just like, I just need a van, really.
Yeah, well, this was it. We probably touch on one of the topics there, but with the camper vans, we had a car and we got into 1 year. I decided what I wanted to try and do with the business is get myself into a position where I could go away for a month to take the kids away in the summer, and it was just something I always wanted to do. And we found this book called Wild Swim in France, which was this kind of turned into a Bible for us of the best places to go, almost like a treasure map of everywhere to go in France. And when I got that book and looked through the pictures, the lakes were so blue. They were so beautiful, like jade greens and this turquoise color. And the photographs that you see on a piece of packaging for a lilo, and these beautiful people in this beautiful setting, and it's probably France or Switzerland or whatever, and you're like, does that actually exist? And to speed up that story, we got there and then we came round to this place in Jura, and then we came around this gravelly track, and me, Kate, and the kids were all like, we all got out of the car, all the family got out of the car, and we were just on this like ridge, and we were just looking out at this lake, and we were just all in awe of it. Really, it was just so beautiful. And then we stayed there for a couple of days, and then we kept on moving on every couple of days. And that holiday really changed us as a family, really, and it really left a massive mark on me and Kate in terms of what we wanted to do, and probably like how we identify as people, like, you know, quite free spirited, you know, easy to get on with, you know, not too pretentious. You start to like, you do something in life and then everything sort of starts to click and go, oh, I'm this type of bod,
Mm.
I'm this type of person. And that holiday was something that we kind of latched onto, and we just loved it. The kids loved it. But we went away in a car, and then we always wanted a camper van. We were like, oh, well, we want to do this every year, but we want to do it in a camper van. But anyone who's tried to buy a Volkswagen camper van, because I'm sure everyone's been interested at some point, they are super expensive. They like really hold their value. And I know we talked about this.
Yeah.
And so the first one I got was a 300,000 mile T5 that looked the dog's bollocks, like a metallic navy blue with the big wheels on it and everything. I loved it to bits, but it slowly went wrong. And through that, I learned a lot about keeping vans maintained,
Yeah.
like just fixing it all the time. And, you know, in the forums about how to fix things and do a lot of stuff myself. So that was how the camper van passion started, basically.
Yeah, my other half has been obsessed with watching people do up their camper vans from scratch on YouTube. Yeah. And he's like, I really want to do it. And then, but at the minute, financially, it's so expensive just to buy a van. Like a van, he's 6'3", so to buy a van that he can stand up in, it'd need to be like a long wheelbase, and, you know, so we can fit everything in properly. Yeah. And it's just the finance really of doing it. But I did see a set builder I know had kitted out a van, and he put it on eBay for 46k, I think it was. And I was like, fuck. But then we went to my mother-in-law and father-in-law got a caravan, and they're looking to upgrade. So they wanted to go to Gloss Up Caravans the other day. So a treat that was.
I love going to Gloss Up Caravans. Yeah, it's great.
It was, we'd never been before, and they wanted to look in like every single caravan. And then we got to the like van section, and some of them that were kind of a more traditional like motorhome were like nearly 80 grand.
Yeah.
And we're like, Jesus Christ. But I mean, people do retire, go over to Europe, and they're gone for like 6 months in them. So I get it. Like,
well, I've kind of over, again, we're kind of skipping about it, but over COVID, what happened was, as I'd kind of, I suppose a camper van is like a house, like you flip it and you try and get a newer house and stuff, and you try and do a bit to it and then get a slightly newer one that's like more reliable or whatever. And I think that's what we'd done. But then over COVID, that kind of got sped up a little bit. And then as we would sell a van, because of everything that was happening in terms of van prices and shortage of parts, and also the people not going away and wanting to get into vans more, and the whole van life thing has took off. There was just this little perfect storm of, you know, we then make good money on our vehicles, and then we were able to quickly keep spinning them up, I suppose, the best way of doing it. And every time I would do more and more on the vans, and we just got to a point where we just bought new vans from Volkswagen and then did them up. And then what we've done then is kept all of those vans and rented them out. So we had one van, and then we sold that, and then we bought more, and then did it that way. And then stupidly over COVID, we went from 2 dogs, one passing away, to 4 dogs. So we needed a bigger van. You know, it's like the film Jaws. We're going to need a bigger boat. We're going to need a bigger van. Literally, we had that conversation. So then we were like, oh, what type of van do we get? So we ended up with a bigger van, which is like this kind of 4x4 off-road thing. And then that was a totally new set of skills then, because you put a boiler in, and I was doing my own electrics, and I kind of learnt more and more about the vans, like just trying to be more ambitious with things, really.
Yeah, that's cool, because we were thinking when we eventually get round to it, we want to take our dog, if she's still here, or the next dogs we get. And the likelihood is that it won't just be one dog. We would have more with her, but she's a bit of a knobhead, so you've got to pick your battles. But I think like that's the nice joy of having a camper van, is going like, oh, the weather looks good, let's go for like a few days or whatever.
There's some, especially with the transporters that are smaller, it is like driving, I don't know, a 4x4. Like you can high up, and it's a good viewing platform.
Yeah.
Also the practicalities of like, I had a van when I was assistant coach of my son's football team. So, getting changed in the back, or going to the tip, taking rubbish to the tip, going to IKEA. There's like loads of practicalities to having a van. But then, it's great. You kind of can just decide, right, we're going to go to the Peak District this weekend, or we're going to nip off. And we've been everywhere in the van. We've done all of Europe in it. Not all of Europe. We've done some key places in Europe. We've done the Highlands. We've done all around Cornwall. We've been all over, and it's been so good. And we did the same. Like all the videos that your fellows probably been watching. I got into it, so I started doing videos on the vans, and then also on this electrical system that we sell, this Danish company, which is just a brilliant system. It was like this all-in-one system that makes building your van a lot simpler. And I just got more and more into the YouTube and really enjoyed it. So I think that's what kind of, as I got more and more confident about like filming myself and editing and doing a bit more, that's then kind of started to overlap a little bit into doing more photography and video with the agency. It's been good. I think that it's a weird thing now. I hate the phrase van life, and van life really it should be attached to people that live in the vans. Like it's the people who have decided to kind of do it fully. But I think there is this kind of phrase around more. I think it's typically used about people that get into vans and camping in vans and stuff, and it's cool. I'm going to a men's only like camper van thing at the weekend, and it's a shame that it's men's only, but I'm sure there's like reasons for it or whatever. But I'm looking forward to that. Some like people that I watch on YouTube and stuff, and that's been another nice thing is you watch these people on YouTube, but it's just all people like you. So you really like these people and you watch them all the time, and then you're like, oh well, I actually can meet that person. Or I've met that person, and they're really nice. So there's like a bit of a community thing there with it, with the other van owners. So that's been really nice as well.
Yeah, I think there seems. I watch Will's Whereabouts. I think that's it.
Oh yeah,
and I think he seems to have quite a community with it. Like he'll do a video with somebody else is helping him put like a heating system in, and then someone's letting him borrow a different van, and like it seems
that's
like
right.
quite a nice community.
Yeah, it is. I think we were saying this. We went to Camper Vibe, which is a really like well-run show, and everyone was just so nice. Like we were saying, like as a little sort of break, just everyone's got the similar sort of passion. Like there's no bad vibes. Like everyone was like really, really nice. And we're saying like we were trying to sort of say the community of people that have camper vans and stuff. Like, why are they so nice to each other? Do you think it goes back? I was like, oh, I wonder if it goes back to like when we used to live in, smaller homes. So there's less barriers and all the rest of it. And because you're all in it together, you all kind of want to help each other out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something like a van breaks down. Like everyone's like out with the sort of jump leads and stuff, and like everyone's really, really helpful. And we found that in France. I know the French typically get a lot of stick about not being very nice to the English, but we found that like 99% are brilliant. And then, you meet all the Dutch people over there because they're all into camping. I've never quite put my finger on that, but I think it's kind of like everyone's in it club type thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and also maybe it goes back to our roots as humans many moons ago when we were all very nomadic and, like a bit more, like you say, back to basics almost.
I think it is. I think there's just less. I think it kind of levels everybody off. Like you're out camping, all right. Someone might have a bigger van or a newer van or whatever, but you're pretty much all back on the same level. And you're all neighbours for that day or that week or whatever, and that's really nice. And everyone's like swapping stories about where they've been, or there's a great park up here, there's a free park up here, that's really nice. And everyone shares stories of like places to go and stuff like that. It's lovely. It's really nice to be within that community.
I think as well, the French, my mum and dad live in the south of France, and I've definitely noticed that the French don't hold as much value in status as we do over here in the UK.
Yeah.
So in France, like half the houses look like shitholes on the outside, and actually on the inside, they're all really nice and cozy or whatever. And they don't care about what car you drive in. They don't care like if
cars
it's
are
new,
like
old.
They have like dints in them, and it's like they're not bothered at all.
No, they don't care. And I think like they have a much better work-life balance, I think, as well. And there's just less social pressure to be the next millionaire or whatever in your town. So
yeah,
I think that's it.
I don't know. It's just south of France is so beautiful. It's like
it's
the gate. Like, look at that rusty old gate there with like the sort of the teal paint peeling off. It just looks beautiful against the beautiful like yellow sun and the sort of like soft stone colours around it. But in Manchester, I'd be like, fucking hell, I need to get that paint. It looks a right state. It's like in the grey dull of the rain. But in the south of France, you're like, it's so beautiful. Like, it's just got the right amount of rust on it. Let's take a photo.
That's exactly it.
In Manchester, be like, bloody hell, Mark's letting his standards down. He needs to give that a lick of paint.
He's going to put all the new buyers off around the area.
Yeah, that's it. So, yeah.
So tell me how you got to where you are today. What's your journey from school and into whether you went to uni or not? How's your creative career got to where you are?
It was pretty orthodox, really. So I was born in Wythenshawe, pretty kind of working class upbringing, which was brilliant. Like some amazing stories of like growing up in Wythenshawe and going out drinking in the Wythenshawe pubs, and going clubbing at Fridays and going into Manchester. Fridays, not on Friday. The place was called Fridays, and I got some really fond memories and like really good friends there, and like played for a couple of local football teams and stuff like that. I really enjoyed it. And at school, I was kind of, I'd out of the blue, I'd get top marks in science and things like that, but I didn't realise that I was dyslexic. And I think I've probably got a little bit of like ADHD or something like that. I get distracted, not as much as other people I know, but I can get sidetracked a little bit. And I think, I realised as I've got older what those traits were and why. But the thing that I always had was I was always good at drawing. So I'd go around to my nana's with my mum, and, we'd get a chippy, and then my nana would make a chippy butty. We'd put the wrestling on, like proper old school wrestling with Big Daddy and Giant A-stacks in. And then I'd just sit on the little, is it called a poof? Little footrest thing, and I'd just be drawing, and I remember kind of identifying with that idea that I got praised for it. Like it was, I liked the little pat on the head that, oh, look what Mark's done, he's drawn, and all that kind of thing. That was quite nice because I was like, oh, I've got something that I'm kind of good at here. And then, at school, I was sort of the kid that was asked to do all the props and do all the stuff for like the pantomimes and what have you. I did well at school on that side of it, so they put me in for my GCSE a year early. And then the final year, it was an art teacher who I fancied, Miss Quinnell. Loved Miss Quinnell. And she was like, oh, what are we going to do for the last year? She was like, oh, we'll do, have you heard of graphic design? I was like, graphic design? No, I've not got a clue what that is. And then, she sort of, she was like, oh, well, let's redesign the Kellogg logo and stuff like that. And, started to learn a bit more about that. And then I had this kind of rough idea that I would apply my creativity to be an architect, and then realised that it would take a long time to do that and probably didn't have the academic know how to do it. But so I sort of went down the graphic design route, 2 years ND, a 2-year HND, and then converted it to a degree. So I did 6 years in the end. But I really enjoyed it. My degree was at Salford Uni, which was great. And then, from there, I got, we did our end of year show, Brick Lane in London, and I had a few job offers. And then I ended up getting a local job in Manchester with quite a big web firm at the time. And then, so I did that, and then eventually went into a small branding agency, and eventually started up my own thing in, what will that have been? Losing track of time. Started my own thing with this other guy. Then, I'm trying to speed the story up here because it got a bit boring. Had a business called Devote, worked with him on that, and then eventually I kind of left and did my own thing with AHOY, and then that was me working from home, and then eventually getting an office, and that was like 2007, 2008 officially, and then grew it from there really, and went through that journey of me being the graphic designer, then being the project manager, then being the creative director, then learning that I had to stop doing the design and kind of come out of that and be more sort of managing, and went through that journey. And then, we just kind of grew and grew the business from there, really. Yeah.
How did you find being really creative and doing the graphic design? How did you find then going into the managerial stuff? Did you find that a hard transition?
I went to an event and I remember it really well, because when I went to the event, there was a big conference and they were like, put your hand up if you still are on the tools in your business. Like what you started with the business, do you still do that day to day? And I was like, with my hand up, like, yeah. And then through the different things that were said, I remember going home and thinking, right, I need to kind of, stop that now and try and come off the tools and try and work on the business. And it was after that day, really, that was kind of the switch in my head to say, well, if I want to do what I want to do with the business, then I need to come away from that. And I think really looking back, it was, as we grew, we did great. We were on a run rate for $1 million turnover at one point. And we were doing really, really well. It was good that I could manage people, and we won awards and all the rest of it, and that was really interesting on a different level. But it was very much like it was very ego driven. I think, if I'm honest with myself, it was very ego driven. Like, how far can I push it, and what's the best team I can get, and like the best clients we can have, and all the rest of it. But yeah, I did. You do get further and further removed from it, and then before you know it, you kind of in spreadsheets and it's just meetings, and you through that process, it's a very consultative sell. So you become a really good salesperson because you're always looking to kind of solve the problem than get the sale. You just intrinsically try to solve the problem. Therefore, you do get the sales over the line. And so because you become good at that, you to a certain degree, you become a slave to it as well. Mm-hmm. And then the problem is with an agency is as you grow it too fast, you then have to become better at sales, and then you can end up taking on work that is probably not paying enough, and you become a little bit of a wage slave. And that's that balance. And I've seen that really with like agencies that grow really quickly, and then something happens and all the rest of it, and that's quite hard to sustain. And that's when it gets stressful. It really does get stressful. And I sometimes get asked to give advice to agencies, and obviously I'm non-exec at Spark as well. It's trying to ensure that you don't go too quick and actually get yourself into a position where you are intentionally turn work away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to build a machine, like a marketing machine, that's going to bring in a certain volume of leads with a certain volume of conversion. You have to build the agency around your existing network, your existing level of marketing expertise, and either jump that up and grow the business, or keep your feet on the ground and actually start to enjoy it and turn some stuff down and keep your cost overheads quite tight and be profitable, and be closer to the projects and enjoy the work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple of agencies as well all of a sudden go really big and then having to make people redundant because they've almost missed a couple of steps. I mean, I don't have employees and stuff. I'm just sole trader, but you can see it happen. And I think you're right in the sense that you can hit that point where you're almost over promising and doing it for as cheap as possible just to get work through the door, and actually then not delivering the best work either, because then your employers are pushed to the edge and they're like stressed as well. And I think there's definitely that balance of having quality over quantity, I think.
Definitely. And there's almost like there's like a Chinese proverb around the whole, a businessman gets off a boat and he's looking at this guy fishing and he's like, do you know what, you catching some amazing fish there. If you get another boat and you get another person to help you, then you could catch twice as many and all the rest of it. And this story goes on about, and then you could have, a trawler and a fleet and all the rest of it. And then when you finally finished and you want to retire, what are you going to do? And he goes, I'll go fishing. And I think that is like where I'm at with my life at the minute. I was trying to push to this million turnover, going to all these different things. How can I grow the agency? And to give me this kind of striving for this stability in life financially, to then be able to do all the things that I want to do, and realizing that actually this quest to grow this agency was creating no stability financially in my life. I was almost jealous of the stuff the designers were working on, the project managers had, because all they had to worry about was the project and to a certain degree, the art and finesse of getting that project done and making it really effective and all the rest of it. Whereas I was there sweating, when's the next project going to come from? Right, I've really got to make a good impression on this meeting, and right, I've got to build this. The SEO's got to be improved, and it's very, very stressful, and it takes all the fun out of it. It really, really does. But I think I'd say with an agency owner, once you need to understand that if you push the dial up on the workloads that come in and the staff numbers, well, the dial on the marketing's got to go up.
Yeah.
So no one will be able to see what I'm doing on the podcast. We'll have hands. But you tweak a dial here, you've got to realise that there's payoff further up. You've got to then become a better marketeer as an agency and all the rest of it. So if you can push yourself into a position where there's a more natural abundance of work and say no to things, you can put your prices up a little bit and be more selective about the things that you do, and actually work with the clients that, what I call the 3S, fun, fame, and fortune. You start to get more into the clients that you enjoy working on. You get real good fame because there's slightly bigger accolade of client, and you get paid better.
Yeah. I think my graphic designer friend, actually, she's freelance, and we were talking about this a little while back, and we said that you hit a point, even as sole traders, we've hit this point of the same exact example of you've just said there, whereby you push your prices up a tiny bit because you've now experienced 15 years instead of 10. And the people who don't want to pay that aren't necessarily the ones you want to be working for anyway, because maybe they're like pushing their luck with how much you're asking you to do, or, like you say, more stressful or what have you. And she's like, now she's working less but earning more than what she was previously. And she's doing stuff she likes.
You realise there's the nuances of all the different types of clients and the characters and the values and how they run their business. But there's some commonalities there around the fact that, there's the common thing of the smaller clients are always, the more pain. But actually, it's the bigger clients you're then either working with them with a manager and with a structure that's a lot more together and organised, or there's a marketing manager in place that's got their shit together and they're organised and they feed you the stuff in the right way and give you the stuff you need. Whereas with an owner manager, you've got to do a lot of that and get their arse in gear a little bit. Yeah. I'm generalising. Some are more organised than others on small owned managed businesses, but the pendulum swings, which is what I suppose the thing we're trying to say, really.
Yeah. And I think like I've definitely worked for bigger clients who are, in one word, chaotic and don't have their shit together. And I've worked with little clients who are like, here's this bish bash bosh, and someone's given me like absolutely everything. And then they've got what they've wanted straight away because they're very aware that what they've been asked to do has a time and a money budget to it, and they want the best that they can get from you. So I do agree with that. I think it swings, it definitely swings both ways, but it's having the patience when people are a little bit more awkward as well, and just being understanding, isn't it? But also that comes with, I've definitely found, comes with age.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite patient, and you know, I'm definitely not a yes man. I you know, if I feel something's got to be a certain way, I'll definitely push what I feel is the right way and try and articulate in the best possible way. But I kind of generally think that with this, I'm trying to think how to put it without being negative. Try to put it in a more positive way. I think one of the challenging things is I like to keep people happy and please people. And if you have a tosser of a client, you can end up seeing it as a challenge to try and win them over. And that can take a lot of energy. And when you're the type of person like that, that can sometimes sort of be a bit of a red herring. You can kind of start trying to, you've got all these clients that are very, you know, it's the kind of Pareto law thing, isn't it? It's like 80-20 rule. You can put a lot of effort into trying pleasing these clients, which is probably something that's deeply intrinsically in your psyche about pleasing people.
Yeah.
And that can fuck you up. So you need to, as you get older, you get better at sussing yourself out, your weaks and strengths, and actually understanding that dynamic a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And it also, like, I've definitely found this, as I'm getting older, I'm a lot less bothers me, as like stuff just doesn't bother me as much, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like at the end of the day, you probably find this as well, I'm doing something creative that I really love. I'm not doing brain surgery, thank God, because I don't think anyone would have any brains left, but and I'm not doing anything it's important to people, but it's not the end of the world. And I think grounding yourself sometimes and being like, right, okay, well, we've just got to make this campaign look great. And
it's this is a really good topic. This is fantastic content. This I'm enjoying this. When people are incredibly passionate about what they do, which graphic design and like with what you do, it really straddles that line between art and something that's a commercial output. You know, design has it has to have an intrinsic solution to a problem, whereas art doesn't. Art does have a solution to problem. It's got to make people think or have an emotion or change perspectives or whatever. So there is a sort of design to a piece of art, but actually design has an intrinsic design purpose, and that's beyond aesthetics. But when people are really passionate about it, especially because what we do is quite subjective, it can overflow. But equally, like I was videoing a football match last night, and I can't mention names. I don't know, like it's a secret. Anyway, so I've got this new camera, right? And it's a cine camera. It took a big investment of me, but I wanted to push myself into it to learn the camera at a really low level. Really feel I want to get this camera to make it feel like it's part of my body. And so I keep getting these different like tasks set by my mate who's into video, and he's like, "Right, I'm filming this documentary on Macclesfield FC, and come and film some of the stuff." And we've been editing the footage to get together and stuff like that, which has been dead interesting because I would love to do a documentary. Anyway, last night I went to the football match, and fucking hell, they were kicking off in the tunnels, like fighting, and like it was loads going on. And because I've got this new camera, they think I'm like, fucking wanker, Sky Sports. And I'm like, I'm fucking not scared. Like, I'm the guy with all the gear, no idea. Like, I shouldn't even have this camera, like, walking about. And it's got like, it's this DJI Ronin cine camera with this like chicken head and like this big screen and everything. And it's like, handles. And it was interesting on a number of different levels, but like how, it's just a game of football, but people are really passionate about it. And like the abuse that Robbie Savage was getting, after the game and all the rest of it, I was like, wow, it's, and I think you've got to kind of, within what we do, you just keep having to go, we're not ambulance drivers. We're not brain surgeons. It's not life and death. We're not counsellors. We're providing a service, and it is tricky because you put your heart and soul into it, but you have to take a step back.
Yeah.
That's where I've got to in my head with it.
Yeah, I'm in the same place where like I can be really passionate about something and probably be a little bit silver-tongued sometimes when I'm like, get away from my styling, stop touching my stuff. And actually, you have to go, oh, I'm not doing this for the front of Country Homes or for Vogue or anything like this. Like, it's a blanket on a supermarket shoot. I need to chill out a little bit. And it just comes from passion. And that's where everybody's thing comes from, creative passion. And like you say, we are dancing a dance between art and commercial things. And sometimes you have to stand there and explain yourself and be like, I just think this looks prettier. And people go like, oh.
It's always that thing, isn't it? There's naturally subjectivity always in what we do. You can't get away from it.
No.
That's what makes it so interesting as well. And there is always a brief, but there's then subjectivity within the client because the client's choosing what you do and don't want. There's subjectivity in our team because the designer's choosing what you want. And you as a person, in terms of your styling and all the rest of it, you are affected by your world and your surroundings in terms of what you see and the media you take on. We are what we surround ourselves with to a certain degree, and that comes through in what you're doing. We've gone off on a tangent. We have on a load of topics there. But and I think interesting as well. Like, I always feel sorry for the client. I think sometimes, like, you see a case study in it for a branding agency or web agency or in what you do. But when you get a good client and they help you and they're part of it and they throw ideas in, like, the clients need a pat on the back to say, fucking good client, you know what I mean? Like, really works like a part of the team. And I think sometimes the good clients don't get the credit they deserve sometimes.
Yeah, I think as well, sometimes when you're on set as well, stuff can just be so busy that you forget to just say, oh, cheers for that idea. Or, like I was on a big Christmas campaign propping the this food, and I wasn't styling the food. I'm not that clever. And the head retoucher came along to take retouch notes, and we were just discussing like how the best way to make this packaging look. And we had like one really tall package, one really wide package, one really square one, and it was just again a problem to solve, like a puzzle. And I was just stumped. It was like 4:00 in the afternoon, and your brain just goes. Yeah. And I was like, what do you think? Where do you think this can sit? And he just chimed in. He was just taking retouch notes. He was like, how about you try this, this, and this? And I was like, oh, you've done it for me. That's it. That's where it needs to go. But sometimes you need that person who's not been on set all day, looking at the same products to just give you that fresh perspective. And whether it be client or...
Yeah, it does. I think that's kind of... It can be tricky working on your own. You'll find this. And I think when you're a freelancer, you've got to kind of... get that feedback and get that fresh pair of eyes off, if you're working within an agency or whatever, you need it off like your peers and the people that you're working with. And sometimes if it's someone who's not necessarily, for example, the client's a perfect example, they're more of a marketer or a business owner, but actually you've got to warrant them giving their input because they are, at the end of the day, they're a consumer like all of us, and they see things and can have ideas and have input, and sometimes it just gives you that little different thought path to go, okay, and then that gets plussed and improved upon and stuff. So
it's always a delicate conversation. Sometimes this was actually on that Christmas campaign. The client came over and she was like, there's just something missing. And I'm the honest person where I'm like, tell me what you want. I'll give you a list of what I can do for you.
I was like, Tinsel. This is something more tinsel.
I wish I could take tinsel to every Christmas shoot, but I would just never be allowed on another Christmas shoot again. And I was like, do you want a chair? Do you want a shelf put in the background? Do you want this? Do you want this? And she was like, the photographer was like, oh God, Charlotte's like on. But I was just wanting her to give me some direction, because if I'd have gone and say put a chair in, and then she come back and been like, there's still something missing, but she knew what she wanted, it just cuts the time down. It's just like, tell me what you want and I'll do it for you. Here's what I think. I've already done what I think looks best.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. I think sometimes it's best to just short circuit the time of the problem. Like, if you ask, don't be afraid to ask that question and go, well, what is that thing that is missing? And if they can't find it or articulate it, then you go, all right, well, leave it with me. I'll think of something. But if you can get that little, the whole scene's looking too bright or too dark, or, it's like, sometimes they'll see it, but they can't express it. So yeah.
It's a funny one, because I'm that honest person on set, sometimes to my own detriment. But most of the time I'm like, I don't take my work personally. Like, if someone says, oh, we need to move that, I'm not going to go and cry over it, because, it is what it is. Yeah. And I think, like, whenever I go into a new team, I'm always like, I'm honest, I'm straight up. If you don't like something, tell me, I'll move it. Because I just think I want to get the job done and well, and how the client wants, without going round and round the houses, waiting for them to approve it. But they just wanted a bit more fairy lights in the background, and a turkey's gone to waste, and now I've got to do the turkey again, and it's like another 5 hours. Do you know, like, just it's a time thing, I think. And I'd rather do the job well. I love a one-shot wonder. Me, I'm like, if it's done well and the first shot, great. That's my like pucker moment. But I think some people find it a bit shocking when a stylist goes, oh, what do you want? And they're asking like very direct questions. But that's just a personality trait of mine. But once people get used to it, they're like, oh yeah, cool. Shah's like just asking it straight.
I don't know, it's an age thing or experience thing, but like it's perfectly fine to ask. I think there's this kind of when you first start on your career, you feel like you've got to you think you should already know it, so you therefore don't ask the question because you don't want to look stupid, and you're supposed to be the expert, so you should be telling them what they want and all the rest of it. But you slowly realise that actually the expertise and what they're buying into is for you to produce it as quickly or as well as possible, and sometimes that means just asking but really basic, sometimes stupid questions to have a more expert outcome.
yeah, I agree. And I think like the whole thing of looking stupid, I mean, like, fuck me, I fell over today at the studio. My foot hit the back of a set and I just went flying today. I just looked at my photographer and just went, it's happened again. And she just pissed herself. And she's like, why are you on the floor? And I'm like, I'm not even embarrassed by this anymore. This is quite an extreme thing, but I just don't feel silly anymore. Stuff happens, you trip over stuff, you say stuff. Like, the best way I am fully on, and I posted it on my LinkedIn actually the other day, like when I saw my nephew at the weekend, I posted a little thing on my LinkedIn saying like what I've learned from him, and like toilet humor for me is like so funny. So I taught him some like dirty toilet humor. He's only 2. And like, I think I've forgotten where I'm going with this.
We're saying about
being silly.
Within your career, that sometimes you feel you've got to have this like exude professionalism, that you know everything that you should be doing, and sometimes you just don't. You simply just don't, and you have that in life as well. Like
Yeah, and I think that being silly, having like silly moments, and all right, not. Toilet humor maybe isn't properly perfect in the work environment, but like falling over, tripping up, like having silly conversations with people lightens the mood, takes the pressure off stuff, and you can have like I find I'm in a better creative flow if we're all having a bit of a laugh, if there's like a bit of jokes and stuff, and you kind of get the best out of people when you're all being a bit silly, and you don't necessarily have to be, and maybe it's just our creative profession as well. We don't have to be so serious all the time.
No.
And I don't think I've ever walked in a studio and been like, oh my God, it's like a Morgan here because everyone's so serious. We're all a bit stupid.
Again, this was something that kind of like a bit of a penny drop moment for me as well. Is like people in business, whether they're owner managers or whether they're the marketing person or whatever, like they have a lot of mundane things to do in their life. And then when you come to see the designer or the stylist or whatever, that's like, it's going to be a fun day. Like this should be like, we can enjoy this a little bit. Oh, I'm going to a design studio. And it's this thing that, well, we're doing it funny enough, with our brand at the moment, like our original branding, which is probably about 8 years old or something like that. It was very serious, very like angular, very kind of trying to be too cool for school and all the rest of it. And it worked really well for us. But it doesn't reflect who I am on our agency and what we're doing anymore. So our new branding is all around this idea that simplicity breeds quality. Like that's the strapline. So that's kind of like, everything pivots around that and like the decisions that we make in the agency. And like the new logo is just kind of basically, I was trying to simplify the logo as much as possible. We originally had like a triangle, a square for the H, a circle, and an upside down triangle for the Y. But actually, it just still felt too angular and boring. And I was like, well, I want it to be fun. It's like going to a creative agency. It's fun, like a little bit more kind of freestyle and freedom. So the new logo design is all based on circles and basically cut a quarter out of the circle and little bits drew out to make like the ascender on the A, the H, and the O and the Y. And it's just I see that brand now, and it just feels so much more kind of easygoing. And some elements of it remind me of like the old, not Lego. Is it Playmobil? The like the old like toy shapes and stuff, like the face and the head and the.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, and that's like more kind of. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of just got a different perspective in life now. I want to have fun and I want to enjoy the stuff I'm working on, and I still want to get paid well, and I want to treat the projects that we do with like the utmost professionalism, but I want to have fun doing it. I want the clients to have fun doing it. I want the people that are working at to have fun doing it.
Yeah, I think what you've just said there simplified what I was kind of getting at, is that like you need to enjoy the job that you're doing and have fun with it. And I can totally see that as you start to head towards managing director kind of heights, it does take the fun away a little bit, because I can't think of anything worse than a spreadsheet, not gonna lie. Like I was a studio manager for a while when I was like 23, 24, and the spreadsheets did my nutting because it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I couldn't figure it out. So it is important to have that fun, and like life isn't here to be taken seriously all the time, is it? And the same with work. It's good that you've come back round to that. I was going to say, do you think as well that when you launched your agency, obviously it was a different time. So what was it, 2008, something like that? 2007?
2008, yeah. I mean, literally when it launched, it went from me working in my cellar to then going sharing with an office. So it was, 2008, like, it was,
It's like a different time to now, isn't it? It's like things have changed a lot, and
I think there was a run when I felt like, we're getting the right staff in here now. We're winning awards. We're on a bit of a run. The clients started to be a better ilk.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're kind of going places. You feel like you're kind of unstoppable and all the rest of it. And I think you can fall into the trap of believing, your own ego. You kind of. And I think the agencies then they can become a bit of an echo chamber of you're all telling each other you're great and all the rest of it, and you kind of believe your own hype a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's funny because I look back and I go, well, have I just give in? Should I be growing the ages and all the rest of it? But you've got to come back to like life is so short. Like, I've been away on holiday with my mum and realizing that she can't walk as well as she used to. She had an operation on an ankle, and you think, you don't know what's going to happen in terms of your health. My dad's not well at the moment and stuff like that. So you think life is pretty short. You hit 20 and you've just starting to work out what type of person you are. You've not really any money if you're studying or whatever, if you're low down in a job. Then you can do a bit more as you kind of work your way through to hitting 40. I'm 45, I'll be 46 in December. And you slowly realise there's like, I had a friend who was into property and did incredibly well with his property portfolio, and out of the blue he got like stomach cancer and passed away really quickly. And you see all these things happen in life and you think, like you've really got to enjoy what you're doing. And I think it's all well and good having that work ethic of head down, do as well as you can and work hard and then enjoy at the end. But actually you are at risk of never seeing the end or actually getting to the end, and the whole like the fisherman proverb going, well, at the end of it, do I just want to do a bit of painting and drawing anyway? And, maybe I do a few logos, I don't know. I think I have been watching a little bit more about, quite sort of successful people going full circle and taking a step back to be happier. And I'm thinking out loud here. I don't see it as a setback. I think I just see it as, and maybe I'm becoming more of a realist and maybe being a bit more selfish as well and trying to kind of enjoy what I'm doing a bit more.
I think you're right as well. I'm 10 years younger than you. I'm 36 at Christmas. And
Don't rub it in.
I feel 50, especially after I fell over today.
Yeah.
And I think you hit a point. We've had Naif's grandparents have passed in the last 4 years. My grandma, I saw my grandma in the summer and she's not as well. You start then seeing your own parents' mortality, I think. You kind of go, well, actually, what can I learn from how they are now? What can I bring in earlier that means, I might be working longer, but I can still enjoy my life while I've still got my body as good as it is. I think that although it's scary, I do think it's something that is a lesson I personally also learnt from COVID to kind of try and have a bit of a work-life balance. But I think it is age as well, and just seeing more you've got to spend time with these people while they're still here and while they've still got all their cognitive ability, because it's really scary when that goes really quick. And that can be terrifying. And I think it's all very well chasing the money, because that's what some people want to do. They want to be millionaires or they want to be as successful as they can be. But I do think you need to take that break and be like, oh, actually, I can still have a really comfortable life if I don't chase that quite as hard.
I'll tell you what's good as well, I think, with what's happened is I think there's starting to be a bit more of a backlash maybe a year ago or so around this whole, I'm going to kind of, have my side hustle. I'm going to work all the time. I'm going to get up. I'm getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and all that bollocks. It's like, if you like getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, it makes you feel good. You do it, but actually you don't need to feel shit if you're not doing that, me working on a naming project till 3 in the morning and then feeling like shit and getting up at 10 in the morning but I've nailed the brief is perfectly fine. That's okay within the remits of what I do. Me working late and then not being able to get in the morning or hit a client meeting is a totally different thing. And I think it's all about perspective. And I think, again, it's like, I love the mornings, getting up in the morning, going down, having a coffee and all the rest of it. But, there's a side to me, and a lot of freelancers will have this, I'm a night owl as well. I just all of a sudden get going at like 10 o'clock. Like, right, I'm going to work on this naming job that I've been putting off all day, or, I'm going to think about this brand strategy, or like, yeah, there's that. I think there's more of a trend towards accepting who you are more than you should be this type person. You need to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go and do a run, and then have a
Yeah.
a freezing cold dip in your little plunge pool out the back and all the rest of it. I think there's a bit of backlash about that.
I think, again, going back to COVID, I think COVID changed a lot of that, because I think people were scared. And I think also they were furloughed, and then they go, oh, what was I doing? Was I working too much? I've not seen my family.
Yeah.
I've not done this for myself. And I think there's a lot of people, they call it quiet quitting, where they're just doing what's in their contract and not doing any more. Yeah. And I chatted to some of the younger photographers at a certain agency, and they were saying, I've
not heard that before, but yeah, okay, yeah.
So they're just kind of going back to what their contract says and not really doing overtime. And, and I spoke to them about it, and they were like, well, if I had to leave tomorrow because of so-and-so had passed or this had happened, they'd just replace me with somebody else. They don't care enough. And I think there's a lot of people, like you say, who were striving to be people who they're not. They're not living their authentic selves, then getting stressed and anxious because they weren't keeping up with the Kardashians, if you will. And therefore not being themselves, and then burning out and having a mental health breakdown anyway, when it's actually like just better to be yourself. Like, I'm not particularly a morning person, but if we haven't got the dog walker and I'm at work and my husband's at work, I'm getting up at 6:30 and walking the dog. You've got some shit you've just got to do. But I think it's finding your balance there and not over exerting yourself in any which way so that you're burnt out for doing your passion.
Yeah. I think that's it. It's kind of understanding that there's acceptable and not acceptable.
Yeah.
And just, you don't need to fit in this kind of shape. There's lots of different shapes, and everyone's different types of things. I know there's loads of different things about whether you're a dolphin or a wolf, or like what type of person. If you're a wolf, you get up at this time and you eat this and you do that. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, like, we're all different people. Do you know what I mean? When you read it and you go, which one am I? I'm a starfish. What's that? Maybe that was a different site I was looking at. I don't know. But yeah, I think after COVID, I think with everything, and like the way I was reading on the news about the way nature like kicked back in, and I think there was this kind of like cerebral reset in our heads that was like, oh, okay, like, we do need to have time to talk to the neighbours and try and reduce the pace of things so much. And I hope we kind of keep on hold of that a little bit and kind of are able to utilize that to kind of have a better enjoyment of life and a better kind of standard of living and all the rest of it. I think it's a really, really healthy thing.
Yeah, I agree. We actually moved after COVID because of we didn't enjoy being in the city anymore, to get more outside, and more in nature. But yeah, it definitely, it readjusted both of our mindsets of like wanting to be like, we were like, oh, actually we want to be out walking in the Peak District, or we want to be outside more, and rather than cooped up. I mean, I think since COVID we've been to 3 gigs maybe, and we used to go monthly to gigs when we lived in Manchester, pre-COVID. And now we're like, there's a couple that we like the look of, but we're not going all the time. And I think now we're outside a lot more, and it's just a nice pace of life.
We're the same. I think it's one of them, like working at home you can go a little bit stir crazy, but we typically go in. We've got shared office in Stockport now, and I love being there. It's really nice. We typically go in on a Thursday, and then we'll have bits and bobs on, and whether we're doing a photo shoot or a meeting or whatever, we've got stuff on. But I've really enjoyed being at home more, and we had a beautiful office in Ancoats, Colin in Ancoats on Cutting Room Square, and it was great, going into Manchester, but it gets old pretty quick, like doing that slog and trying to find somewhere to park and all the rest of it. And it just makes more sense. Like it seems to me personally, and everyone's different. Some people like really thrive off that, and Spark have done that as well. Like they only go into to work so many days a week now or what have you. And, I know there were certain big brands that made a bit of a stance about, no, everyone's got to come back in now. And if you don't, then, you're out sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of living and working in Stockport and then, actually spending more time in Stockport on a Friday night or a Saturday night has been quite nice. We're quite lucky because Stockport's gone through a bit of a transformation.
Yeah.
It's the new Berlin, don't you know? Yeah, it's like, we've been quite lucky in that way that we've been able to enjoy our sort of our town a bit more. But in general, we're starting to feel like our life's a bit more balanced, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely noticed a transformation in Stockport because we lived in Reddish for 5 years. So moved in 2016 and moved out in 2022. Yeah. Last year. And so we definitely noticed the change in Stockport. And Stockport now, I'm like, oh, damn it, we've moved out and it looks so nice now. There's so much going on. Like SK Records putting on like gigs and stuff. Looks amazing.
Yeah. I was at, I think it was the first one was on I think it was on a Thursday, and I remember looking out the window at work, and I was like, "Fucking hell, I was meant down there." I was like, "Right, get me work done, finish, go down." And the atmosphere, like on Underbanks, there when there was a bit of drum and bass on, people like drinking. It was like really good atmosphere, and it's kind of like, I don't know. It felt like the birth of something a little bit different. Like finally, Stockport had its little moment, and because I remember having conversations with some of the guys that were kind of really pushing for Stockport to be something different. And I remember thinking, how's the council going to, move this? And there was, at one time, there was a talk of, almost like emptying the indoor market at Stockport and then it becoming another Mackie Mare or whatever and what have you. And I think it was nice. I think the council did a really good job of going, no, we're going to leave that as an indoor market and we're going to keep that. And actually it's going to go into the produce hall and then do something different. And I know there was a lot of criticism with, I think it's Nick who runs produce hall, but actually it's a really good offering and it's been really well done. And actually now on Foodie Friday, where you can go into the pet shop on the indoor thing and they're like serving, gin from an optics and everything and all that. I think it's really sweet and it's something like different. They've not turned it into a Mackie Mare or whatever, and therefore actually it's got a soul all of its own, totally different. And I quite like that. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we did like a ghost tour round. Oh, Gordon Bennett. There's like a place in near the market where you can do ghost tour in Stockport.
Yeah.
And we came out and it was Foodie Friday. And
Right.
me and Nath were like, oh, because we'd not been. We were like so close, but we'd just not been. And we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is probably before they started opening the indoor market as well. It's when they just had traders like outside. It was so great. And it's so nice to see like a few friends of ours still live that way. And like, it's nice to see that it's so vibrant and like you say, so individual, because it could have gone the same way as any other kind of mini city and just been like lost its soul. And I think it's nice that it's kind of after COVID again, it's kind of like blown up a little bit more. And actually on that note as well, I feel like Manchester, the Northern Quarter especially, is losing its soul.
Yeah. It's a tricky one. You can start to see it more the less time you spend there.
Yeah.
So it was my daughter's birthday, and we nipped into Manchester, and we went for a drink in Ancoats, and then went to like Spinningfields to Dishoom for a curry and what have you. And it was it was nice. And like, we took my mum and Kate's mum and everything, and it was lovely. And you can really, we were saying like, we're so lucky. Manchester, like, if you're from, I won't mention any place, but if you're from a shitty city or a town where there's not much going on, you go into Manchester and you've gone on a hen night or a holiday or whatever, and you're like, fucking hell, it's a cool city, and you take it for granted. So as much as I would criticize certain things, it's still a really good offering.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of them where every quarter has its day. I remember years ago, like when Castlefield all got done up, and like you'd go out for a night in Castlefield and it was brilliant. Or the locks, like when the bit under. So you have these different areas, and Ancoats is having its kind of time in the spotlight at the moment, and there'll be a different place. And I think it's kind of, there's always new things. And someone passed a comment, they were like, oh, here we go, die-cast, another like warehouse type thing, and with a few quirky bits. And I'm like, no, it's good, man. It's like, you've got the old style, kooky kind of, like the 70s style, like static homes outside. And then, do you know what? It's a good space. And, I've been there for Sunday dinner, and they do a really good Sunday dinner and stuff. And maybe that's me. I don't know. I'm probably less critical of things and like to see all the positives in it. But I definitely agree. The NQ feels like it's like needs a bit of a different thing at the minute. It feels like it needs a bit of a spin up, a bit of a freshen up, needs a bit of lippy.
Yeah, I feel like when we decided to move up here about 7 years ago, we went to the Northern Quarter. I was already working up here for a year and freelancing and driving back down south every weekend and stuff. And then I took Nath up because I was like, the Northern Quarter is going to be his vibe. And it was all full of like artist graffiti. There was some quirky like independent brands and restaurants and stuff. And now I think the big brands have gone, oh, people like graffiti, so we'll sponsor somebody. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great for the graffiti artists, but they're like, we'll get a graffiti artist to do this massive sports campaign on the side of a building, and it's losing the individuality of itself. That's the thing I think I'm kind of more sad for the artist side rather than like...
Well, it's that kind of typical pattern, isn't it, of the cheaper areas, attracts the artists and creatives because they're looking for cheap space or cheap places to live, and then that becomes the cool place to go because that's where all the cool people are.
Yeah.
And then it outgrows its welcome, and then it becomes something else because then everyone wants a piece of it. So the big brands then want a piece of the cool. They want to put stuff on there and all the rest of it, and then it moves on to a different area, and then the cycle of life, and the cycle of and it kind of moves about like that. And I think, just see it with a positive light, and out of something always. I think the thing I've come to accept is that when challenges present themselves in life, it will always bloom into something new and good. Mm-hmm. And whether that happens really quickly or eventually, actually, if you really have your positive glasses on and constantly look for it, you'll find it. I know that's like a whole different type of philosophy that you could talk about for ages, but it does have its challenges, and it'll bloom into something different, or its time will come and go, and then those areas might be great and good because they'll get their time in the spotlight. But yeah, you're right. It does feel a bit like needs a bit of a different. Yeah, maybe that time's gone. It's like like the areas in London that with Soho and stuff. It's kind of has its time, and then it's kind of it's spoiled, and it just loses its thing until it reinvents itself. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's it, and maybe also because the smaller towns and cities around Manchester are having their moment. People aren't as invested in the city centre anymore as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's it. Well,
pessimists. Yeah, no, Core is not where it used to be, basically. That's what that conversation was.
That's what that is. No, I think it will. I think you're right, though. I think it will come back round. I think stuff always, especially in such a ever-changing city, I mean, I've seen it with my own eyes how much it's changed over the past like half a decade, and it'll
Yeah.
come back round. And it, like you say, Ancoats is having its moment, and
Mm.
all around there is so pretty and really nice now. And
Yeah.
it'll just come back, and then they'll go, oh yeah, well we've changed mayor or someone in
Yeah.
office has changed, and yeah,
But it kind of, everyone's got their kind of preferences and window like of what they want. And if you took someone round when there was the fear if you went down the wrong street you'd get stabbed or whatever,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of like some people are like, oh, it's a bit edgy, and this new place that's opened is like, it looks a shithole, but then this pub or this restaurant's opened, and therefore I love the fact that that's like a hidden little gem of light amongst all this shit.
yeah,
That's what is beautiful about those things, but then they get more and more popular and it all grows. And then you have a different type of clientele, like my mum or Kate's mum, that feels more comfortable going there because it feels a bit more pedestrianised and it's all kind of changed. So, everything has its moment, and then everything then has its people that like adopt it. And it's the kind of, the bleeding edge or kind of early adopters that get into things, and then it moves on to something else. And then we have to move on to something else because it's bloomed into something different.
yeah. I guess it's the evolution of cities, isn't it, really, and how they change. Because I think when we were on about moving up to Manchester, my mum was like, oh, your uncle in the 70s went to Stockport and it was horrendous. And I was like, yeah, but it's not the 70s anymore. And also I was like, Mum, you worked in Kings Lynn in the 90s, which was horrendous. So, I mean, Kings Lynn's a whole new town now, city, and it's
Right.
I wouldn't want to live there, but it's nicer than what it was like 30 years ago, So things have its, like you say, they have their heyday, and they can change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think then it's the thing for investors, or if you were able to afford it and have bought in Ancoats before it all took off, especially with the way like the houses took off, you'd be well quids, be quids in.
Yeah. Well, I think like when we bought in Reddish, the person who bought our house when it went for sale, there was a bidding fight on it because people couldn't afford Heaton or Levenshulme.
Yeah.
So they were moving to Reddish because Reddish was like, I don't know, a 15-minute walk to Levy, and like same to Heaton. So the people who bought it got priced out of Levy.
Yeah.
So, I think that kind of thing, had we have wanted to stay, maybe, like probably would it be worth more now? Maybe, I don't know, in 5 years might be worth even more, but it's not always about the money, is it? So
No. Well, yeah, that's definitely, certainly over the last few years, that's definitely been my thing, is kind of just try and enjoy it more, even if there was less income. For me, it's been the other way around, and it's given me a little bit more kind of financial stability. But actually, it was never that intention. It was just more, I just couldn't do it anymore. I mean, my whole plan originally after COVID was to just spend 50% of my time within the campervan business, and then 50% of the time on the agency. But as I did less, I spoke to all the staff, and I was like, I'm going to make the, and they're like, well, yeah, it's no surprise because you just would come on to the meetings just talking about camper vans all the time, Mark. And, how to build a camper van, how to build a website. So there's no fucking, there's no surprise there. So that was cool. But I think, yeah, the original plan was to try and not do as much with the agency and spend 50% of the time with the van type stuff. The way it turned out was actually, as the agency was smaller, I enjoyed it being back more hands-on on the projects more. In a weird roundabout way, I came back to kind of love, not necessarily running an agency, but just actually working on the projects and solving problems creatively in that way was really nice. And I contracted for, ended up like just over a year for a bathroom company, and sort of was working between, not physically, but working with the LA team and the Manchester team. And I really loved that. I'd never worked in-house before. it was always having my own agency or working at an agency. So to actually be working in that way was really, really good. And I think actually, as I said, really love to do this documentary on like people who change career. There was a designer at Spark that's gone into the police, and I think he's like fast tracked into become a detective and stuff. So you have this great graphic designer, creative director that's gone into the police, and you have all these people that like change careers. I remember there was a paint and decorator who came to AHOY years ago and was a really good developer, and it's like taught himself code. You know, to a certain degree, me, if I wanted to then take a career building vans, I know I can build a really good van and I get good feedback and all the rest of it. So I think I really find that fascinating because there's actually a lot of pressures on changing career. You know, what does my partner think about that? Am I risking the financial kind of equilibrium of, well, you know, I'm doing a job that I don't like doing, but I'm putting in to pay the bills. Like, you know, just because you've got your dream about what you want to do, you fuck that. You just keep putting the money in. Like you've got to work and all the rest of it. Or if it was someone who, you know, had a business or had a business partner, these challenges there around, well, you've gone into this with us and now you want to do something different.
Yeah.
And I think what's great is like Neil, who I don't know how long we've got, but there's an amazing story there. Like me and Neil used to be arch enemies. Like,
oh, really?
Neil, Creative Spark, and there was like Creative Spark, Cube 3, and AHOY, and we used to all be like pitching against each other all the time. And then me and Neil kind of knew each other from like out and about, say hello and everything, but yeah, it was quite competitive. We'd lose out to each other all the time. And we've since found out that each agency used to always talk about the opposing agency. And I'm sure there's agencies in Manchester that are constantly pitching against each other that have the same sort of conversations. But I had something happen at work and I was like having a meltdown. I was walking down the road pretty much in tears. And then he was walking the other way and his sales director and almost like right arm had said she was leaving and going to work somewhere else. Claire was brilliant at what she does, and she went on to work at a big agency. And he was the same. He was like, we just was like walking and handcuffs. He's like, "You all right?" I was like, "No." "You all right?" He's like, "No." We went and had like a coffee or a drink or whatever, and it was like, what's going on? He was telling me all about what was going on. And ever since then, we've been really, really sort of tight. So when I said to Neil, look, I'm going to do something different with the agency and all the rest of it. And Neil supported me last time when there was I'm not going to go into that, but there's a bit of an interview I did with Mr. Stephen Bartlett, a.k.a. like the new, as I was saying last time, like the new Parkinson of our era. He seems to interview anyone and everyone. Really, really, really good interviewer. You know, there was a time when he supported me with that where you really work out who your friends are. You know, after that sort of news had happened, you know, a competitor of an agency come round to my house. He'd never been to my house before. It was like, "How are you doing? Are you okay?" And all that kind of stuff. You know, that really speaks volumes about the industry that we're working within the creative industry, about support. I remember the finances got pretty tight, and Guy Levine, bless him, who runs an agency called Return on Digital, and then Carl, who run Cube 3, I think they borrowed me like $5,000 each because I needed to fill a cash flow hole with $10,000. And again, like Carl was a competitor, so borrowing $5,000 to your competitor to keep them going.
Yeah.
Competitor, you know, that I remember like feeling really emotional about those things and thinking, fucking hell, that's pretty amazing. You know, likewise, you know, an accountancy firm that we're using at the time, you know, just pulled me off the website. Like, oh, there's bad news. He's like, just, you know, not good news now. So like, you pulled off the website and you're not the poster boy anymore. You know, you realize like when shit happens, you realize who are there. I'm not saying like by your side and thing, but you realize who people, what they say to you and what they do and all the rest of it. And I think that's one silver lining from something bad happening is that you start to realize who's really like around you. You know what I mean? Who sticks around? Yeah,
Yeah. And I think despite people being competitors, I think if you're all in the same industry as such, you kind of want to support the people who you would also then pass work to as well. So say if
yeah,
like I'm busy or I can't do a job and they pass it to another colleague who's also a good friend and I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, you go do that, you go do that. And that kind of sense of community
mm,
comes often from when you've shit hits the fan and you're like, oh, who do I turn to here? And
yeah,
people you can trust. And, you know, I think that's good that it's kind of a community like that because,
yeah.
you know, you never know when karma might come back round and you might be like, oh, right, well, I'm in a position to help you guys out now. And
Exactly, and I've had that with like say a freelancer gets in touch and says, "How's it going?" Oh, I'm on my ass a little bit and I've got no work. I'll be actively trying to find stuff for them, or
yeah,
even pass stuff their way, even if it means me sort of like missing out on something or whatever, and it affects me a little bit financially. Because I'm not religious, but I wholeheartedly believe in the karma thing. Like
yeah,
I have seen it come back to me too many times to not believe in it. Like it just works. Like just give and try and help people as much as possible, and it'll eventually come back. And actually, it's great to give and help people, and I really do believe in that. Yeah,
yeah. I'm the same as you. I think you need to give back, have your boundaries, obviously, but I do
yeah,
think you need to give back and give, especially when we're in an industry that's quite small
mhm,
and there's people who are trying to get in the door and just being like open with them and wanting to like pass them work or test work or throw their name
yeah.
in the hat. And, you know, it helps everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was interesting. I've spoke to some of the guys at Toy Fight who are a brilliant fucking agency, and chatting to them about different things. And actually, like it's a cottage industry that we work in. There's loads of small businesses. So to be getting your knickers in a twist about this agency in Manchester or that agency in Manchester, actually, you don't. Again, another thing that's kind of sort of transposed through COVID, more happily working online, is that you can work with businesses overseas. Like we've got clients in America now. Like we work with clients in America like really easily, as if it's just normal to us, and a video call, because you don't do as many sort of face to face meetings. And I think realizing that, yeah, like don't get involved in the whole bum fight. Like it's your agency owners and freelancers and everything in Manchester, but actually you can provide your service to the world. It's pointless trying to cover up and hold, or it's like covering up your scores. Like you don't need to do that. It's like just share. Like you're all in the same. It's easier to empathize because you are all in the same boat. Like you've all got the same challenges. Like being a writer or a designer or a stylist, and like, fucking hell, I've just mental block today. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to take it, or all those types of things. And I think that's why Neil's give me praise around being a non-exec, and I think I've been a non-exec that is more hands-on. You
Mhm.
know, I do ask the questions and I do chair the kind of the leadership meetings, and there was a sort of new process and framework for running the business and those meetings. But actually, I think it's more the ability to get stuck in and get involved with things, which is probably everyone's got their style as a non-exec, and that's been my style. Um, yeah, sorry, I've gone off on that. I don't know what to. Oh my
you
word! You said we'd go off on tangents, but like we have covered a lot of ground on topics. So yeah, apologies if
we
I've gone off on one.
no, it's I waffle a lot. I know I go off on loads of tangents, so I that's the way I like to have a chat. So
Yeah.
how do you find running? So you're running your own two of your own businesses, and then you're a contract marketing director, and the non-exec. How do you manage all your time with all of these strings to your bow?
You kind of. It's funny, I was having this conversation with someone, they're like, oh, you like must be hard work and how do you make it work? And I always think, well, there's people that do businesses, whether it's like, I don't know, midwives or whatever, that, they've got a lot of plates that they spin. And for me, I just kind of like compartmentalize things and just make sure I try and. So, and also there's like meetings or things happening throughout the month where you just, bi-weekly meetings for Spark with the leadership. With AHOY, I've got projects that I'm working on. I just have check-ins with the team. We're in on a Thursday anyway. We're looking at possibly doing 2 days a week. With the dairy business, just checking in. We set what we're going to do in terms of like the the planning around the marketing. So reporting back in and getting stuff done. So, do that way. Like with the camper vans, Katie pretty much does all the taking the bookings and all the rest of it. But if Katie's cleaned one of the van inside, I'll do the outside of the van. So as much as it's like I've been doing stuff all day and I'm tired, I'll go and put a shift in and I'll go and clean one of the vans. And it's actually quite a good break and you get loads of like, variety in it. And so you just embrace the variety. And I think what I've been doing is with AHOY, there's less need to take on every single project. Therefore, we take on less and do a better job on those projects. And we've got fewer but more retained clients. So it's kind of more regular work. So for example, we still work with the bathroom company. When I was no longer the brand director, I still work as an agency and provide the ongoing service. So the answer to your question is, I turn more stuff down and have regular things throughout the month that gives you structure.
Yeah.
Is that a good answer?
Yeah, it was a good answer. It was a good answer. I've got one final question for you, actually, that I do ask everybody. And I get lots of varied answers. And I don't mind whether this answer comes from work, home, whatever, wherever your first answer comes from. So it's, what inspires you?
That is a really good question, especially as it's not just work related. I mentioned this the other day, and I was mentioning my dad's like not well at the minute. He's got like mental health problems, and he's really, really poorly. And I was talking to my dad about like just letting go of things and not worrying about stuff so much. And I was like, say you're on holiday or you're at a bar or whatever, and you talk to someone, and it's just always that cool cat that just, you have a chat with them. It's like, yeah, my missus left me for another guy, and he's just smiling, whether that guy's like crying when he gets home or whatever. There's these people in life that are always just like happy-go-lucky. They put the effort in, but they've always got a nice thing to say about somebody, and they never try and they're not too neggy. They like got good energy to be around and stuff. I really find those types of people just really inspiring. I really find like literally like Robbie Savage last night. I shot the interview with him at the end, and the opposing team was singing "Savage is a wanker" to you got to pump it up. Like they were singing that, like Mactown were 3-0 up at half time, and then they went out second half, and then they lost 4-3. And then Robbie Savage, who doesn't get what I would imagine he doesn't get paid much for doing that type of role, is then getting shit. And then while I'm interviewing, there's another like some of their fans like giving him shit while he's been interviewed, and he had a tough time last night. But then my friend spoke to him today, and he's like quite happy-go-lucky and like making jokes about things and all the rest of it. I think it's just trying. Really find those types of people inspiring, like just happy-go-lucky, make the most of it type of thing. My mum's that type of person, as tough as a sort of thing that she has or been through, she's always like quite chirpy about things. And I think I really try and be one of those type of. I'm not always, but I try and be inspired by those types of people, basically.
I think that's such a good answer, because I think it's always, like you say, no matter how hard life can be sometimes, and you're not always happy all the time, but it's good to look on the positive side of life all the time and just let things go. Let stuff that doesn't need to eat you away, let it go.
Yeah. There was an interesting one, just if you've got another couple of minutes, is another little story, is the whole coup that happened with the agency, that the guys that left and set up another agency and all the rest of it. I took those guys on because they were really good at what they do and all the rest of it. But a sort of common, the one of the guys who had known for a while and had worked at this branding agency with him, the guy that we knew, he'd had a really tough time in that his son had passed away, and his dad and his mother-in-law passed away. And then recently, I had a conversation on the way to London, and I was like, "How's things going, Damien? Are you all right?" And all the rest of it. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not too good at them." I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Oh, have you not heard?" I was like, "No." He was like, "Oh, well, Kaz has passed away. His wife." And I was dead upset, and I was like trying to talk to him, and it's difficult because he's upset anyway, in terms of like he's had a tough, time with everything that's happened in his life. And it's like, I think I was caught off guard a bit, and then I felt bad. Like, well, I should have been a bit more together. It just really, like, as you would, he was really caught off guard. And I had this moment where I thought, well, this guy, who I'd worked with when I was younger, and we worked under Damien, and I was like studio manager there for this agency, Influence. We had some bright laughs there. Through what had gone on, I had like dislike for that agency, but I knew I kind of had this feeling that Dave wouldn't know that Damien's wife had like passed away.
Yeah. So
on the train, I was like, I'm just going to send him a message. I've not spoke since this whole like thing.
Yeah.
And I just sent him a message and said something like, sorry to sort of message out of the blue, but I don't know if you know, but I don't know if anyone would have told you, but Kaz has unfortunately passed away, because Dave had worked for Damien even when Damien was working from home. So I'd spent a lot of time at Damien's house and spent time with Kaz. So I thought I'll just tell him, and we had this little sort of message, as like old friends, and that was quite nice. But again, I've told people about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, why have you done that?" Like, basically, you're letting them win, or something along those lines. But my view is, if he then goes and speaks to Damien and has a catch up with Damien, then I think the world would be better for people like that, with that type of attitude. So I think if I can have that kind of attitude and do those types of things, then the world would be a better place, and maybe it'll let me let go of things a little bit more. So yeah, that was kind of like quite a nice little story, as to be inspired by those types of people and try and do those types of things, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, like you say, stuff like that catches you off guard, and actually your peers and your friends, actually, if you're going through something like that, it's difficult to tell them, but they would be round you in a heartbeat. And I think sometimes you don't have the confidence, or you don't want to burden people with stuff. Yeah. And actually, sometimes it does take somebody else to say, "Oh, I've spoken to this person. Maybe just drop them a call, check how they are, because I think maybe they need a network around them a little bit more." And I think like that, especially around men, I think it's harder for you guys than it is us women. And I think speaking about things that happen, and like, it sounds like your friend has gone through the fucking mill, and it sounds absolutely awful. So I'm sure he really appreciates like people coming round him and just having that bit of support.
I think it was ultimately me pushing aside my self needs and desires of still feeling pissed off about what, and that's an understatement, about what happened, because it seriously affected me, the family, financially, all the rest of it. Like, it was what they did had huge implications on not just me, but the rest of the staff that worked at the agency. And I think it was a shit trick for a career jump. And don't get me wrong, on the other side of things, they will have had to work incredibly hard to get the agency going and all the rest of it. And I understand why people move and leave agencies. It just didn't need to be done that way. They just shit on everybody to move on, and it just didn't need to be done that way.
Yeah.
So putting that aside, it was just me thinking, Damien will feel, it would be nice for Damien to have more people show that they care. And I had a funny feeling that he wouldn't have known Dave, and they spent a lot of time together, like literally working from Damien's house and what have you. So I thought it would be nice for Damien for Dave to reach out and say hello, and then be like another person that cares, sort of thing, especially when you're having such a tough time with it, which is, I can't imagine that. It's horrendous what he's had to kind of work through and live with. So yeah, that was I don't know what that anecdote is. What is it, like swallowing your pride?
I think it's putting your ego aside, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
And like finding the humanity in everybody, because despite people doing stuff for business, at the end of the day, we're all human and we've all got feelings, and we all go through shit times at whatever point in our life. Some people get dealt a JCB load of shit in one go, and some people get that same load of shit throughout their life. So I think it's good to put separate those feelings, I think, sometimes, and just kind of like see people for who they are despite everything else. They're still human. And
I think it's one of them. I think just every now and again you can just put, doesn't matter how bad the grudge is or how wrong you think the wrongdoing is, or whatever it is, every now and again it's just nice for the benefit of other people to just put that grudge aside a little bit. And I think all that can do is, we're all hurtling through life, and each one of us in that has got our own little different stories and all the rest of it. But every now and again, I think there's this moment to step aside from those tracks of life and go, actually, it doesn't matter with all those stories and what's happened. It's just like, and that's like, Carl from Q3 has gone through a lot and all the rest of it. And actually him taking a little sidestep and going, oh, right, all right, you got a shortfall there. I'll give you the 5K and borrow you the money. To take that little, let's take a step out of life and just help that person, regardless of whether it's going to, affect me down the line, whether a business competition or whatever. I think that those little moments when you just do something that's out of the tracks, like, or lift yourself up and go, right, well, do this. I think that's quite a nice thing.
Yeah, and I think it's what we all should do as well. Is sometimes you get so, like you say, you're hurtling through life, stuff's happening, curveballs being thrown at you, your career's going mental, and you're like, then something happens and you go like, oh shit, actually I do need to take a step off and just take my ego away, chill out a little bit, and just regroup and reground myself. And I think that happens to, I think, a lot of us. And I think also because our industries are so small, you see lots of different people. So I definitely know stylists who work like as much as they possibly can. Some would say they're greedy. Some would say that they're just working as much as they can so they can retire early, and there's other people who are plodding along. And I think it's sometimes people can get jealous of how the other half are working, how they're living and everything else. And they forget actually maybe that person's got older parents that they're actually caring for as well. So that's why they need to earn more money. Maybe the other people are working slightly less because they've got kids or they've got a chronic health condition that they can't keep up doing the same as everybody else. So I think a bit of compassion and humanity goes a long way.
Definitely, yeah.
And kindness probably actually as well.
What a wonderful way to end the podcast,
Yeah,
that is.
I think so. I think it's nice. I think it's remembering to be kind to everyone is such a big,
Yeah.
big thing. And like, it's so true that you never actually know what's going on in someone's head
No. No.
until you have a conversation with them, or they open up about stuff, or they choose not to open up about stuff. You know, there's
Yeah.
plenty of people that I know that haven't opened up about things, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and it's, you know, life is hard anyway. And I think
Yeah.
as you transcend through life, you
Yeah.
see, as we were talking earlier, you see other people's mortality, and you
Mm.
think about your own, and you know, we've just got to be compassionate and kind towards others, I think.
Mm. It seems so simple, but in the complications of life and what happens, you can really lose track of it. I was thinking about the football last night, because we've been talking about it, and it was not nice last night. Like, you know, there's this line with banter and all the rest of it. And I just felt like it was crossed last night. It was a shame, and especially since there's all this stuff in football about grassroots football, like, having more respect and all the rest of it. And yeah, I couldn't help thinking, like, if you took any of those football players from the opposing team out last night and going, do you know what, you singing that song as well as you were singing it, it's all in tune. That whether this guy's a celebrity or whatever, he's a dad, and he started football playing at a low level like you, but he's also played in the Premiership and he's captain Wales, and he's actually been where you are and then gone all the way to the top, and he's still coming back and managing a team. Like, I'm pretty sure if you took him out of that and sat him aside and talked about it, they'd all go, do you know what? Yeah, it's a shit thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's no matter what happens in life and how people are. I think when you take people out of the moment and actually, you trust in the kindness of people, you'll always find the kindness, I think.
Yeah. I think it's always there. I think on that note, because we've done a very British thing here where we've gone, oh, that's a good ending. And we've gone, it's similar to slapping your leg, isn't it? When you're around someone's house and you're like, right, I'll see you later. And then you carry on for another 10 minutes. That's so British.
It is. Yeah.
I've really enjoyed listening to your journey and having a conversation with you, and it's been great. And thank you so much. And
yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a while since I've done anything like this, and I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's good. I've been listening to it. Funny enough, is it Mark Bone, the illustrator, you had on a couple of
Mark Bell, yeah.
Mark Bell, really good illustrator. So it's been nice actually having a bit of a flick through and a listen to some of the podcasts. And it's nice when you go on a podcast and you find the other guests and stuff. It's been really nice. So yeah, really good. Keep it up. And yeah, hope to see you soon.
Thank you. I hope to see you soon too.
Nice one. See you later.
See you later. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow, and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye.